We are certainly encouraged and excited and honored to have back with us today Walid Shoebat. He's a former PLO member and a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. We've had him on before, and he is one strong gentleman to talk about a variety of things. A committed Christian and speaks Arabic and translates Arab media into English, which in itself has got to be a full-time job. But his latest book is called The Case For Islamophobia. For Islamophobia. There's a picture of it there on the screen, and let me encourage you to check it out at Barnes & Noble or online at Amazon.com. So, Walid, nice to have you back with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, what prompted this? This is quite the book.
Well, I see slowly a creeping label that is slapped on the foreheads of anyone who is critical of Sharia or Islamization globally. And of course, they title us, you as well, most likely, as Islamophobic. But the term phobia seems to go against and contrary to the reality that phobia is actually fear of something. You could have phobia of heights. You could have phobia of narrow alleyways. You could have all sorts of phobia. But this cannot be constituting a phobia of us being critical of the Sharia movement, in which that we're not afraid of it, we're confronting it. However, and it's logical to have fear of creeping Sharia. That is not an irrational fear. It is a very rational fear. In fact, philosopher Pierre Ben, he talks about Islamophobia. What we're dealing with is critical thinking here, to the point that he attributes this whole movement of Islamophobia to being really Islamophobia. Let me give an example. You have the liberals. The liberals, when we begin to critique Sharia or the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt or whatever we're doing, they say, hush, 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 don't say anything. We don't want to offend the peace process. We don't want to offend this and that. Let's not offend the Muslims. Let's not offend the moderates, so on and so forth. So in reality, they're the ones who have the phobia. So accusing us of having a phobia is actually a reversal of the realities. The ones with the phobia is the leftist movement, who is, by the way, not naive towards the issue of creeping Sharia. They are in collaboration with this movement because many of the right in the West or the conservative movement in the West believe that, they believe that these are naive, that they are useful idiots, they call the liberals. I don't agree with that notion. I think it is much of collaboration, and I can give tons of points on that, correct accusation I'm giving to the liberals.
Well, I think you have really opened up an incredible door here, because I have to agree with you that the term phobia does nothing but create an environment where the other side can win the war and never fire a shot.
Correct. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool. In fact, Islamophobia is a tool used by proponents of terrorism. I'll give you an example. Okay, you have the massacre at Fort Hood, Nidal Malik Hassan.
Right.
15 people murdered, killed by a terrorist who was shouting Allahu Akbar while he was killing Americans. One of them was even pregnant, so we should up the ante for one more person, because we do believe that a pregnant woman had a life.
Right.
Now, you look at one terrorist, another terrorist, his private Nasser Abdo. Nasser Abdo wanted to emulate Nidal Malik Hassan, and he, in fact, publicly decried Islamophobia when it comes to the issues of hunting terrorists. He said, we should condemn Islamophobia in America. Yet he wanted to emulate Nidal Malik Hassan and carry out a similar attack, which begs the question that CNN attacked me because I was speaking at North Dakota, and they say there's not many Muslims in North Dakota. Well, there isn't much Muslims at Fort Hood either in Texas. Yet twice you had an attempted attack on American military in Texas, or no, one attempted and one succeeded, and a very small population Muslims there. So it is not irrational to fear terrorism, and it's not irrational to question whether Islam even itself, is it a system or is it a religion? Because when a Muslim says al-Islamu dinun wa dawla, this is, by the way, came from the Prophet of Islam. Islam is a religion and a government, a state. You cannot separate the and. Islam is a religion and a state. So are we not here in America supposed to exercise our freedom of speech and question this ideology, even Islam itself? I think, the problem is in America is Judeophobia, Christophobia, Ameriphobia, all kinds of phobias. Islamophobia could not be one of them because you don't have Jews carrying out a religion and a state, neither do Christians carry out a mission of religion and state.
Well, at what point do you think there's going to be a pushback in America? Because, we know that Islam and terrorism are synonymous, and yet it's been given the umbrella of a religion to hide under, but at the same time it's still propagating its meaning by killing people, innocent people. So at what point are we going to push back?
Well, that's a very good question. And to answer it honestly, I don't think we're going to be pushing back anytime soon, because nations usually don't realize the futility of their mistakes until it's too late. I think you look at historical examples, Egypt, for example, when the Islamists were moving towards Egypt, the Egyptian Christian populace says, we all worship the same God, the same pacifism that you had today, until after the Islamists invaded Egypt. It was too late. You had the same thing in Constantinople in Turkey. The Christian world was invaded. The moment that they began to entertain pacifism. Christianity is not a pacifist religion, and that's the problem. Yet you look at today's Christianity in America, it's almost heretical, and it's become very pacifistic, and that's been the danger. The Islamist movement is the virus. The virus cannot attack unless the body is weak. We have never been weaker than ever. Take, for example, the case which I examine in Islamophobia, the case for Islamophobia, is the case of Michel Bachmann. Bachmann had contacted us to do a research on Huma Abedin, in which we did spend a month. And in fact, the research was so ironclad that it proved not only that Huma Abedin's mother is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was the concern of Michel Bachmann, but she turned out to be a leader in the Muslim Brotherhood. What was the reaction of the Congress? You had 4 congressmen, 4 or 5, one of them even kowtowed eventually, that stood with Bachmann, and the rest were all attacking Bachmann. How many congressmen and women do we have? What, over 300-400?
400.
I don't know the numbers exactly off my head, but you could say that 1% only stood with Bachmann on her correct analysis that there is a creeping Muslim Brotherhood in the government. 99% went against her. What does this tell me? It tells me something very simple. It tells me that 99% of the Congress are cowards. There's no other way to put it. They're cowards, including the right. Its problem is not on the left. The case for Islamophobia isn't handling the problem on the left.
Right.
We always point fingers at the left. Right. The problem's on the right. You have, McCain. McCain stood against Bachmann. McCain continues to support the revolution in Syria, which is clearly turning out to be an Islamic takeover, just as we have in Egypt. We are living in a pathetic situation currently, not from the left, from the right as well, and from also the Christian movement in America, which is turning coward by the day.
Yeah, there's much to be said on that. I want to come back to the Muslim Brotherhood, and number one, what is their agenda? Number two, how is the United States connected with it?
Well, the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood is very clear. In 1924, the West, when it was at its prime, Judeo-Christian perspective aspects they believed in, United Kingdom, they finally gave a crushing blow to the Ottoman Empire. 4 years later, the Muslim Brotherhood was born. The agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood was very clear, to basically revive the Islamic glory days, in which they will do it by intervening in the West. These elements were basically persecuted in the East, which was most of it had Judeo-Christian ethics and influence from the West, in which these elements were extradited or even executed in their countries. Egypt did not allow the Muslim Brotherhood. So these fled, the Wahhabists and the Muslim Brotherhood began to flee to Western society, especially in Great Britain. Hizb ut-Tahrir of Palestine, began to become very active in the West, as well as even in India. And then it began to metastasize in those nations where freedom was open to any ideology you can have. So you had even the Iranians brought the revolution from France. Khomeini came, was exiled in France. So they found the fermentation process in the West, and then they began to come back. You look at Sheikh Qaradawi. He was in fact in Qatar, different country, and then he camped in Egypt during even the victory of the Muslim Brotherhood, in which they ousted out very clearly the secularists in Egypt. And so now the idea is very well established in their dogma that they will defeat the West by collaborating with elements that agrees with them. It's not elements that are stupid or useful idiots. It's element that agrees with Islamic movement. This is why the whole crux of the matter is that the liberal movement agrees with the revolutionary methods that the Islamists are using. And so this collaboration basically created a Trojan horse. We see the Trojan horse in the CIA, in the FBI, at the university campuses, in the government itself, advisors to President Obama. So they're very much entrenched, and they wedged into the gate, into entry points, into much of the hierarchy of this government, in which we see that the Muslim Brotherhood calls the shots on many issues. CARE is becoming very influential in this country.
Fascinating. The book is entitled, and we're just scratching the surface here, folks, so you may want to check it out, The Case For Islamophobia. There's a picture of it there on the screen, and Walid Shoebat. Well, I want to get you back several more times because I think we're just scratching the surface on this. I got so many more questions, but let me encourage you to get a copy of the book, and he tells it like it is. And I want to commend you for your work, sir. I know you take a lot of heat for it, but keep it up, and also keep pushing back on the American media. Go for it, man.
Yes, sir. We have to be a lion in a fight, not lions in peace. What we're having today is lions in peace and deer in fight.
All right, thank you. God bless you.
You bet. God bless you.